Hello, I'm Dr. Sara Ptasnik, and I'm going to be showing you how to make an ocean drum. So an ocean drum is a cool instrument that has usually some small beads in it, and when we gently move the drum back and forth, it sounds like the ocean or like waves. And this type of sound is very naturally soothing for our nervous system, and also fun to make, easy to do with stuff you might already have at home. So first we'll go over some of the materials you might need. First is just a box. Ideally not too banged up, just a regular box. And then something circular that you can trace. I have this little roller for just rolling my back, but you can use anything circular you have in your home. Maybe it's the top of a pot or the top of a stool. So just look around and try to find a shape that will work for you. Ideally something that's not too small, because if it's a bigger diameter, you can have better range when you're playing the instrument. Other things you'll need are a marker to trace, some tape, ideally clear plastic tape is good, but any tape that you have will work, and just a pair of scissors to cut out the shapes from the cardboard. So I'll go ahead and trace this now. You can see I've got one circle here on the top of the box. And then you can trace on the other side. And now I've got my two circles. So next you'll go ahead and just cut out the circles that you've made. And try to keep the sides of the box intact, because we'll be using those later to create the circle around the two circles. And you might find you might have to make some different kinds of cuts first to get close to the circle. So yeah, you can see if you make kind of these tangents away from the circle as you're cutting, that kind of gives you some more space to maneuver. Okay, so there we go, we got one circle so far. Okay, with the second side, I cut it out a lot more roughly at first, so I think that does make it easier, and then I'll go ahead and make a smoother cut. Yeah, that makes it a lot easier. So I would recommend doing that. Rather than trying to cut the circle out perfectly, do kind of a rough cut first, and then you can cut it a lot more easily. Okay, beautiful. So now you've got your top and your bottom of the drum. And next we'll paint these. So you can decorate these any way you like. You can do maybe an ocean scene or a waterfall or another scene that's very soothing to you to imagine, or any sort of pattern you like. I'm going to do a bit of a yin-yang symbol to kind of remind us of some of the traditional Chinese medicine principles we can talk about, and the flow of yin and yang. But feel free to decorate this however you like. All right, welcome back. So I finished painting the top of my drum here. I just made a couple little fish to symbolize the yin and yang symbol, and also with the words in and out to help as a reminder for breathing. So I'll show what that looks like in motion once we go. But again, get creative with it. Feel free to decorate your drum however you like. I just painted one side of the drum. You could paint both sides. You could paint the sides of the box, but for simplicity, I just painted the top here. And then the next step that we're going to do is we're going to create the boundary around the drum, the sidewall. And for that, we'll use also the sides of the box here. And what I did was I measured with the measuring tape the circumference, and just used a soft measuring tape. If you don't have a measuring tape, you could even just use a string just to get an idea of it, and then compare that along the box. But we'll be using tape, so you can just add the sides up until they make the entire circumference. So don't worry too much about perfection. When I measured mine, it was 37.5 inches. Each side of the box on this one is 22 inches. So what I'm going to do is just use this box half and cut it in half, and I know that the two sides will then be more than what I need to make the entire side wall. So first I'm just cutting along the edge here. Good. So I've got one long strip, and then I'm actually going to go ahead and just cut this in half. And you can measure it, I'm just going to eyeball it. Alright, there we go. So now we've got two edges here to create the circumference, create the sidewall for the drum. One thing I like to do with this too is bend it so that it will curve easily. So you can just bend creating a curve here, so you can see that that helps it so that it'll curve more readily. You can take that around the bottom and just kind of see where you're at so far. Just trimming this a little bit to make it more even. And then same thing, just bending it to give you that nice curve. And now we can see where we're at with these. So you're gonna take your tape and we'll just do one side at a time. So just cut a nice strip here. And put the tape so that about half of it is on one side and part of it is sticking up, so that we can use that to then close over. And you can cut off any side tape. And then you can just rest the top of the circle over that edge and just start to press the tape over the top. So you'll get a little bit of overlap with the tape, that's okay. Just getting it nice and secure. And you can go around and kind of pinch the corners here, making sure it's nice and snug. So you can see that's what it looks like with that one first strip. And then we'll do the next side. And again, just following around the side so that you're getting tape on one portion of it and part of the tape is hanging off. And then you can cut off any excess tape here. Oh well, okay, that actually worked out perfectly. So you can see now what you've got when you put the sidewall around. Nice and secure on the bottom. You can just follow it around, make sure that the tape is really snug on there. And then you're gonna wanna tape the two edges here so that they come together. finally I'll do this last spot here. So now that we have our drum base with the sidewall, we can add the inner beads that help with the sound. And you can use anything that you have at home that is round and can roll. This will work better than things that are more flat and will slide. So what I'm going to use, I played around with the couscous, I actually didn't like it as much. What I'm going to use are these tapioca pearls. So you can do small or larger ones. I think the smaller ones would sound really good as well. But these have a nice round shape and they will roll really well. So I'll do about a cup. And you can experiment at this stage and see if you like the sound when you tilt it back and forth. And I think that sounds really nice, so I'm going to go ahead and keep it like this, and we'll add the top. I'll take out a couple of the kind of flat ones. Okay, so now what we'll do is we'll add some tape around the circumference here, and then we could add the top onto our drum. Actually, it's kind of hard to do with all of them at once. And then you can start to, again, put the tape over the top. Kind of like if you've ever made a pie crust, how you pinch and roll it over. So once you're done, you'll have your drum fully complete, fully filled. And now you're ready to play it. So in order to play the drum, you want to think about moving the drum back and forth very slowly so that you can get that nice movement like the waves crashing against the shore. I like to do it even in a little bit of a spiral so that it's a little less abrupt of a sound. And it's also nice to pair this movement with your breath. So as you turn and spiral, you can think about inhaling and exhaling, breathing in and out with the motion of the drum. And that way you're really pairing your breath with your movement, with the sound. So all of these things together is very soothing, very calming to the nervous system. And each one will sound differently, so really fun to just explore how these all will have their own unique sounds. So I like to do with the beads kind of starting in the center, and then just gently start to rock it back and forth. Then you can start to spiral. Again, you can add your breath with it. Again, finding the rhythm that feels good for you. And just a touch about the symbolism here. In traditional Chinese medicine, we know that all of energy is created out of these yin and yang forces, and the spiral movement of qi that spirals into yin, into yang, and back into yin, back into yang. And we can also think of the breath that way, right? So that the breath, we exhale out, and then at the end of that exhale, we then receive, the breath comes back in. and the breath cycles just like this energy. So this is a nice way to just remember that we're all connected to these cycles of energy, and we can tap into that to help regulate ourselves as well. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and feel free to drop any questions you might have about the process, and have a good rest of your day. Thank you.